This is Pete, and what we're going to go through today is how to select parts for a computer build. And I'm going to be doing a budget build. I'm doing this not necessarily so that you can copy my build, but so that you can learn how to put the parts together. I'm not really a fan of using PC Part Picker because it does not check, like, let's say, compatibility, or, prices change every day. Here's how you can quickly piece together a computer on the fly. My favorite website, Newegg, and on the left side of the screen, this is Google Spreadsheets. You can see how I put budget, item, price, description, CPU/APU, that's your central processing unit or accelerated processing unit. MOBO is motherboard, RAM is your memory, store is storage, GPU is your graphics card, PSU is your power supply unit, and case. Let's get started.
Components, CPUs, processors, desktops. Now I always do sold by Newegg, shipped by Newegg, that's kind of the same. In stock, AMD socket. AMD, you just kind of go down this list, condition new, and that's about it for this one. Click apply. Sort by lowest price.
Right here, we have these two. Wow, this is a little even cheaper. All right. So for the budget build, you're going to go with the AMD.
AMD Ryzen 3 3200G.
Now, usually you kind of know what kind of CPU you want. So that's why I always start with the CPU. But one thing I did notice about this Ryzen 3 is that I think this is the same price as when it came out last year. Let's scroll down here to the specs, and we're going to see take note of a couple things, mainly CPU socket. So this is AM4. Thermal power is 65 watts. 65 watts. Okay. If you're not sure what kind of processor you want to get, you can go through and read the reviews. Now, the reason why we're picking the AMD Ryzen 3 3200G is, one, this is a budget build, and two, it comes with a graphics card, which substantially lowers your price. If you don't have to buy a graphics card, you're saving a lot of money right there. Now that we know that, we're going to click back to home.
Components, motherboards. Since we're going with AMD, we're going with AMD motherboard. Same thing, left side. Sold by Newegg, shipped by Newegg. AM4. Chipset.
This is kind of important. Well, let's start with this form factors. So I can only, depending on your case size, is the form factor to pick. Now, if you have like a kind of like a smaller case, you want to go with micro ATX. Extended ATX, I think, is a lot bigger than regular ATX. And then ATX is your standard size. I don't really recommend going any of these little sizes. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I don't know. We want in stock. We want condition new. And we're going to click apply. Now we're going to go back down again, and you see these chipsets. Now, if you go through and read the reviews, which I always suggest doing, some people bash me for reading reviews, but one thing you don't see from reading reviews, you see this AMD X370 and AMD A320. Those do not support, even though they say they support the Ryzen 3 3200G, which they do after a BIOS update, but you cannot update the BIOS unless you have a chip in there already. So if you already have that motherboard, you can update the BIOS and slap this Ryzen 3 3200G chip in there. But if you don't, you need to get a like X470 or B450 motherboard or anything higher. this is, I think, the lowest one. So that's kind of what I went with, the cheapest. All right. Sort by lowest price. From here, I just go through and look at the reviews. And this is the one that I went with here. 75. The kind of price went up, but I'm going to use this one because I kind of went with it faster. Price. That's 75, 79.
Gigabyte B450M DS3H AM4. So we're going to click on that.
And we're going to scroll down here for a couple things. Oh yeah. One, you're going to take note of the power connector. Right here it says 8-pin PCU. Right there it says CPU socket AM4. It has an M2 socket. That's kind of like a requirement nowadays. That's about it. And then memory slots here, you get some pretty good speed memory. If you scroll down to the specs here, it tells you Ryzen with Vega graphics. That's what we have. And it has memory speed here, but we're going to get to that next. So we chose, next thing we do, so you pull up a new tab, and the easiest way to figure out what memory you need, a good compatible memory, is to go to the website of the motherboard. And if you click support list here for AMD Picasso CPU, that's what the architecture is. You come up with this big list here. Now Gigabyte has like the best list, which is why I chose the motherboard. And it shows you a list of all the good stuff. Now there's 3 chip brand. You see this here, chip brand? There's 3 of those that you buy. Samsung is number 1, Micron is number 2, and Hynix is number 3. Don't get anything else. The module suppliers here, HyperX is good, Corsair is good, G-Skill is good, Crucial is good. I'm not sure about ADATA. And Patriot is about the bottom of the list. HyperX is good, Corsair, G-Skill. So that's all I know about the American market. If you're from, other, like Europe or something, things may be a little different there. So what we do here is we go down this list, and this is memory that is guaranteed to work at this specific speed. Now you could buy any memory and kind of play a guessing game, but you're not 100% sure if it's going to work proper. Now if you read reviews on the chips and somebody says that memory type works, well then you can go with that memory. But I go through this list and I start from the top. You see, this can run at 3466, which is kind of like the best. So this is what you do. You highlight it, Control-C, and you go and paste it into your browser, and you see what the price is going for. Now this is the best you can get for this motherboard. But it's $331. So it's like, no, I'm not paying that. So that's so much for all those 3466s. You can try this HyperX. Now you want at least 8 gig sticks. So we're going to try here. A little better. It's a little better, $96. If you want to get a little bit faster, but that's still kind of expensive, almost $100. Now, I kind of went through this whole list, and I found the best, what I could find already.
I believe this is the one here.
Okay, that one's a little more expensive still. That's not the one. So there's 3 versions of this. All right, so now when you go to the website and you think you find something that's a good price, here it is, $64. 64.
Patriot. Viper 4 Extreme. DDR4 3200.
These Ryzen chips are very memory dependent, so you kind of want to get a high quality memory. I wouldn't go less than 3000 megahertz, but you're not going to find a very good, you're not going to get much cheaper than this 3200 megahertz for 64. I think that's a great bang for the buck. And it really, the 3200 megahertz, it really boosts the performance of the Ryzen chips. Now, when you copy paste it, make sure you double check this. PV416G320C6K. We're going to go back here. PV416G320C6K. So it's the right one. Sometimes when you copy and paste and visit the website, it's slightly different. We found the memory. Storage devices. Now the new thing is you want to get an SSD. Sold by Newegg. Oh geez. Shipped by Newegg. In stock. Capacity. Well, yeah. Don't go any less than 480 gigs. And then 1 terabyte to 2 terabyte. Manufacturer. There's a couple. This is kind of the same thing as the other one. We're going to wait on that. We're going to wait till we sort these. Condition new. The top 3 is Samsung number 1. Crucial is really great. Intel is really great. And I've noticed, last I checked, Corsair is good. And Western Digital was pretty good. But you have to be careful on Western Digital. Only the newest chips on the Western Digital are good. I follow this stuff pretty closely because I invest in this stuff. So you want to be very careful because there's a lot of cheap trash out there. We're going to sort by lowest price. See this Western Digital green? That's trash. This, I think, is decent. We'll open that up in a new tab. Here's another one. See, this one's a little more. Why does this say SATA 3 when it's an M2? Doesn't make sense, does it? Intel is good. Wow, where is the Corsair? Huh. So the one I end up, like I said, you see how fast this stuff changes? The one I actually bought isn't here anymore. This stuff changes fast. So we'll compare a couple of these. I'll show you what to look for, and I'll show you why this is trash. Even though it's got decent reviews, it's not good. Don't go for it. And there's another one that I thought was pretty good, but that one's gone too. Maybe because I don't know. I don't know why it's gone. Okay, here's what I got. I got the Crucial P2, but as you can see, it went up in price. When I bought it, it was $60. Now it's a couple weeks, like what I checked this, I did this last week, and now the price is $10 more. So here I'll show you how to compare it. You go down, just go straight to specs. Now I don't really recommend getting the SATA 3 anymore. Maybe if it's a storage drive, but for your operating system and any kind of, if you're doing video editing or gaming, you want that to be on the NVMe slot. Max sequential read. This is the fastest it can possibly get. 545 megabits per second. This is what you look at. Now we compare it to this Western Digital Blue. (2400 megabits per second). That's almost 5 times faster. Almost 5 times faster. And then here's the random read. I think this one is slightly more important. The random read is slightly more important than the max sequential read, because max sequential is like really large files, like copying over a video. But random read is like, hey, I'm going, you know, it's searching for a file here, file there, operating system stuff here, you know, always searching for random files. And that's what you want. You want the fastest random read. And this thing is freaking smoking fast. And here's the Crucial P2. This is the one I ended up getting. That Western Digital one, I don't think was out yet when I got this. Let's go to specs. 2300 megabits per second. So it's just slightly slower than the Western Digital. If I had a choice between the two, I would still probably go with the Crucial, just because I'm not sure what brand memory Western Digital uses. It doesn't really say. And I know one thing I do know is Crucial uses Micron memory. I think Western Digital, they probably use Hynix. And Hynix isn't as good as Micron. So that's why I always prefer, you know, I prefer Crucial over Western Digital. But hey, they might be turning over a new leaf, Western Digital. So yeah, it doesn't really... It doesn't really tell us what there is, but this one is the cheapest, so I think I'm definitely going to go with this here.
$58, and it's Western Digital Blue SN550 NVMe M2. Alright.
GPU. With GPU, we're going to 0 because we have a built-in GPU with the Ryzen 3 3200G. And another thing, I went with 16 gigs of RAM. I didn't write that down. Two times 8 gigabytes. You want 16 gigs of memory. If you're building a new computer, you need 6, especially if you have an integrated graphics card. The graphics card will always take 2 gigs of memory, so you actually only have 14 gigs in this case, because the GPU is going to be taking 2 gigabytes. Power supply. Components. Power supplies. Sold by Newegg. In stock. Shipped by Newegg. Now type here, this is kind of the size. Now, if you have a standard ATX case, or if the standard size is ATX, so everything here that says ATX, we're gonna click on all those. That's just 12 volt. That's the standard for the US. Power, we can go with anything 400 and above will be safe, and we can go to 600 and above. Just maybe something might be on sale. We're going to click apply first. Manufacturers for power supplies. EVGA, Corsair, Seasonic is alright. Roswell is a little cheaper. Thermaltake. I've only used EVGA and Corsair, and I did have a problem with one Corsair power supply. I think maybe we'll turn these off. We'll see what we got. Condition new. Energy efficiency. That's kind of a questionable thing. I think when you get to a higher power, then you definitely need it. But if you're this is a pretty low power system, so it's not really needed as much. We're going to sort by lowest price. Okay, you definitely don't want that. You look at the reviews here. So there's not much. This is what I went with.
40. EVGA 400 N1.
Now, if you have a very large case, you're probably going to want to get a power supply with longer cables. So this one's kind of ugly, but it gets the job done. And a lot of times these don't tell you how long the cables are. So we scroll down here to specs, and it's going to tell us. We looked at that. Remember when we looked at the motherboard to see? It says the main connector. It's got the 24 pin. Where does it show? Okay, here it is. Connectors. It's got the 24 pin ATX. It's got one 8-pin CPU connector. And if you have a separate graphics card, it looks like you can power one. I wouldn't go with two on this. This is kind of a smaller power supply. I would not recommend having two graphics cards with this. And to be honest, I don't recommend two graphics cards ever anymore. They're so powerful, you don't need two. It just doesn't, they just don't work. They're just not very good. You don't get the price performance ratio out of two. I always thought Crossfire would be, you upgrade into Crossfire. I've done Crossfire, I've upgraded into it back when Crossfire was the thing, and it was a disappointment. It's always better to get one good graphics card than to try to get two. So when you're done with your old one, you buy a new one and you sell your old one on eBay. People buy them. It's no big deal. Don't try to do Crossfire. Alright, so we saw that works. 400 watt is plenty. We have a lot of headroom with this power supply.
Components? Where's the computer cases?
I'm not as strict about only getting from Newegg. Now, why do I only buy from Newegg? Because there's a lot of knockoff and counterfeit products out there. When you get everything in, you have to put your computer through a benchmark to make sure that everything is proper, because even Newegg has slipped in their counterfeit items. Amazon is really bad. I got my memory off of Amazon, but I try not to buy from Amazon. The counterfeiting is through the roof in Amazon. They say about 3% of all cell phones and 90% of Apple products sold on Amazon are fake. They're counterfeit. Even high-end cell phones are counterfeit. So you need to be very careful. Anyways, enough with the counterfeit. Cases, it doesn't really matter much about the case. Case size. We're probably going to go with the mid tower because I think a full tower might be too big for the length of the cables on this power supply. And we're going with budget anyways, but yeah.
We'll click apply here. We want in stock. Mid tower. New. We don't want none of that old stuff.
Because you kind of want the newer USB ports on there. You want at least USB 3.0. Now they got USB 3.1. Coming out with USB 3.2. And here's a good case here. Now, it's got some bad reviews, and I already read through the reviews, and I'll tell you why this one does. We're going
31. The red color ain't bad because AMD is red, so DIY, PC, Solo, T2. And it's got USB 3.0.
Hey, $31. That's a cheap case. This case had bad reviews because if you have a CD drive, you have to have it stick out a little bit. That's a compromise I'd be willing to take for the price. But you could scroll down and get something like this that looks might be bigger. I'm not 100% sure. Now, for the case, something that I make sure that I get for a case is at least 2 fans. One pulling from the front and one pushing in the back. Think about like a vacuum cleaner. If you're a shop vac, think about you have a shop vac and you're sucking with the shop vac. If you have something about a foot away from the end of that shop vac sucking, it's not going to suck it up because it's a foot away. That's how it works from here. It's sucking, but it won't suck from like all the way here. It's blowing air this way. Now a pool fan pulling from this end, think if you turn that shop vac reverse and you're blowing air, you're using that shop vac as a blower, like a leaf blower. Look at how far those leaves are blown. So you want something you want one in the front, so you want air pushing. That's more important. It's nice to have two fans. So basically what you want is something pushing air into the case.
Total is $372.
That was budget recommended. If you have a couple extra dollars, actually it was $140, which I kind of recommend it now, especially home. I recommended it. I bought it when it was $150.
I bought it when it was $150. Now it's $140. The AMD Ryzen 5 3400G. Everything else the same. Works excellent.
Except you get a slightly faster, about 25% average faster processor. One level above this. The reason why this budget PC is so great is because you don't have to buy a graphics card. And to show you like the next level above this, how much more you have to spend is about at least $700. I'll show you. Even keeping all this the same. Now we have to check the compatibility, but Ryzen 5 20. I wouldn't even go with that. I would not go with the Ryzen 5 2600X. Even though, geez, they raised the prices. They don't even have the 3600. Oh, here it is. 30. Okay, they lowered it a little bit. It's still kind of high though. They raised the price on this, from what I remember. Ryzen 5 3600. Now I'm going to show you something here before this is the level up. So this is the standard gaming computer, and I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to show you a couple other things first here. Is the chip benchmarks. The Intel i5 7500 from 2017. That was the standard like gaming processor, you know, high level gaming processor. People had the i5s. You know, the i7 is for streaming, the i5s were for high level gaming. Average CPU mark score, we're going to get rid of that year there, was 6,131. The Ryzen 3 3200G is a faster processor than the i5 from 2017. It's faster by what, like 15% or something like that. And the 3400G is faster by like 15% right here. The 3600 blows that away by like 40%, being over 40% faster. And this is just the next level up, really. I mean, it's just the next level up. Let's see what the Ryzen 5 3600. 6 core still. I'm surprised it's not 8 core. 6 core. Double the speed of the 3400. More than double of the 3200. So that's that. Let's go back here. So at $200, you upgrade your chip to double the speed. Everything else can still be the same. All right. Power supply. Oh, graphics card. Here's the problem with going to the next level is now we have to add a power graphics card, and I already know it's $220. So we do components, video cards. Oh, come on, video cards. There's a lot of confusion on these graphics cards. Now, the first thing you want to sort by is memory size. 6, 8, 10 gigs at least. Now, you know, if you're buying a graphics card, you really need to level it up, or else it's just worth it just to get this one. It's not worth it unless you're buying something decent, you know. Buy a cheaper computer, wait a couple years, and then really upgrade. So let's see what we have. We want to sort by lowest price. I'm not a fan of the single fan versions of video cards. Here it is, about 220 right here. 15, 219.
GTX 1660. That's not even the super.
That's all right. It's not much of a difference then. You got to be careful because you got to look at the power requirements. Doesn't even show us where the power. Let's go to specs. 120 watts. Recommended PSU 450 watts. You see? This is not going to cut it. And it needs an 8-pin power connector. So we have to go back. Components. Power supplies. Oh. New. Once you start getting to the video card and more expensive chips into the higher wattage, this is where I recommend to get at least an 80 plus certified power supply. So it said recommended at least 550 watt. So here we're at Cooler Master. I'm not the biggest fan. Geez, EVGA is expensive. Right here. Let's make sure we have the connections we need. It even has SLI ready. I do not recommend that. It's got the 24-pin ATX. This is your motherboard connect power. 8-pin, up to 8 pins, and then 2 8-pin PCIe.
63. Thermal plate, 600 watt.
$714. Case doesn't really matter. That's a decent case. $714. So unless you're really willing to spend something, I think it's just worth it to go with this Ryzen 5 3400G. They will be releasing their 4000 series chips in the US, and that should be pretty good. I personally went for this $412 build, and it's working great. It's a lot faster than what I'm used to. The only con that I have about the CPU/APU is the stock cooler. It's a little whiny, a little loud. It's kind of a smaller fan, and with that fast spinning, you hear kind of a whine. So if that whine bothers you, or if you're doing recording, like voice recording, you probably need to get an aftermarket cooler, something bigger with a bigger fan. If this video helped you, please help me by liking and subscribing. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them.